Welcome and welcome to day 4 of the candles, and it is Andrea's day. Canada's
Hi,
representative. Yay.
Canada in the house.
Yep. And as you know, if you've been here in the prior days, do you want to explain who you are in case anybody's been living under a rock somewhere and doesn't know?
Hi, everyone. My name's Andrea. My channel is Lilac Lantern. I'm a big fan of Nancy Jean's. I'm so glad to be here. And
We're
I've been a
glad to have you.
psychic my whole life. And
Mhm.
I know that Nancy Jean and I have lived probably several lives together, going way, way back.
I think we're genetically connected too. She's from the same part of Canada as my family. She just fits right in the face mold and everything else. Looks like all the rest of them up there. Um, so what we're going to do first is we're going to light the candles, the up to Andrea's day, and we're going to do it after we say the meditation that we always open with, and going to get us over so you can see the table. That would be helpful. Light the candles and say, "Honest, I'm really lighting them." Okay. Okay. Together we meet to light the 9 candles in the season of Lionsgate. Lionsgate is the alignment of Sirius, Earth, and Orion. It's a time of great energetic exchange with the universe. Okay. You have to have a lighter that lights too. Um, the portal dates give a boost to our own personal aspirations and to those within the universe. It is a time for us to manifest new ideas,
Mm.
and it enhances our spiritual energy as individuals and also as part of the collective. As we have learned to accept our own energetic vibrations, we are becoming aware of the energies arriving from the universe and support the changes that are being wrought on Gaia and ourselves. We acknowledge that with these many colored candles, we symbolize the expansion of the energies into our life to bring balance and to deal with universal shifts. A year ago, we were riding the waves to the edge of the shore on a sea. Now we're riding the waves of the energy to a better future. And, and for those of you who have not been here, I'm going to move the candles because I don't want to burn my arm off. This is the tiger's eye that I love because it's a grounding stone, and it really empowers us with lots of understanding the flow of energy. And this particular tiger's eye has every color you can find in a tiger's eye, which is kind of unusual. This is a big chunk of citrine that when I read at table, I always had on my table because it always attracted money, and that pretty much worked that way. And then this is the fluorite that has the 4 corners, north, south, east, and west, as above, so below. So that's why, and the stones are there because I like crystals.
As we both do. It's a
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful setup you've got. It's
Well, thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. So,
Perfect.
what are you finding while these waves of energy are coming in on us?
I have been feeling them as we talked about a little bit backstage, especially the beginning of this year, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of heavy energy. And,
Mm-hmm.
I was asking the creator last night, I said, when can I have my energy back? Because I've been feeling kind of, you
Mm-hmm.
know, weighed down by it all. And the answer was very soon. So that's good. And I love what you were describing. I pulled 3 cards, and when you were talking, I'm like, it's so amazing how in sync everything is
Mm-hmm.
because the cards literally were what you just said. So let's talk a little bit about the cards and then my sort of interpret, if that's okay.
Okay,
My
sure. No, it's your time. You're here because we want your energy joining with ours, and we can each learn and grow.
So the first card I got was celestial. So that's being of the sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And look at those vibrational waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
All it's a time for us to remember that we are a part of something much bigger. We are not just the individual. We
Mm-hmm.
come from this giant celestial being, this
Mm-hmm.
existence,
Mm-hmm.
this one form of life. We're all part of it. Now, if we tap into that,
Mm-hmm.
look at the card I got next, the Chariot movement. What
Mm-hmm.
do I see? I'm getting all tingly here as I'm looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
You see how the energy force is coming from behind it and pushing it forward?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we need to be. And that's where, even myself, we have to not fight the flow, get into it and go with it and have the energy pushing us forward instead of trying to figure it out maybe, or go the wrong way, or not go at all, be stubborn and not move.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to realize that this life force, this existence force, this celestial, this cosmos we're all part of, if we tap into that the right way for, us individually,
Mm-hmm.
and ride that, it will push us forward into good things, right? If we stay in love, if we stay in the creator's envisionment of life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Doing the right things, going the right way with that energy force behind us, we're invincible.
That's right.
We're invincible. And then the last card I got was live an extraordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I always say extraordinary instead of extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Extraordinary is funny too, because we're on average ordinary people, but we can have an extra super duper life with harnessing this energy and riding the wave. And as we see here, it's cherries. So cherries can be yummy, but they also have pits.
Mm-hmm.
But that's life. Life is beautiful moments and
Mm-hmm.
some unpleasant ones, but we can still have an extraordinary life if we know that that's the case, and how we manage and navigate ourselves through those times. So I just like the movement here, the excitement. If we tap into the fact that we're all part of something much bigger, use that energy to harness us and move us forward, then we're going to have an extraordinary life.
Right.
You can't go wrong if you're in that wave.
No, and there goes the wave past you again. All this energy.
Hi. And he's got waves of,
Is that Bo?
that's Bo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been feeling weighed down, let's say, by some stuff, cosmos or otherwise, and feeling down about it. But I should instead use that and realize this is part of whatever it is I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of feeling down about it, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
harness it and realize that it's pushing me forward into an extraordinary life,
Well,
right? More openness, more understanding.
and it's hard because for those of us who've been, I told everybody when COVID started, right about 2 years before COVID started, when I would read at table, I would read about people, and I'd maybe once, and I read 3 days a week one place and one night a week and another day. So that's 4 days a week, basically.
Yeah.
And I'd get maybe once a month, I'd get somebody that I got, the cards would show up with the hit, this person's psychic and they're opening up and they're trying to figure it out. And it's always a big burden when the more of your windows get opened up. It's like, I don't want any more. Thank you. I'm quite happy with all the ventilation my soul has. So, and I'd explain it to people. And then about 2 years, starting in about 2017, 2018, I'd get at least one a week, and maybe sometimes two a week, sometimes more. And finally, just before my guides pulled me out of the world, a month before everybody else had to go into lockdown, my guides put me in lockdown. It's a long story, but I didn't get sick. They just said, you're going home. And I've learned not to question them. And that whole month before, I kept, everybody who was reading, I kept saying, their life was taking this major shift.
Mm.
Everything was moving, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I read at this young man's, he was not young, he was in his 40s, was young to me, but anyway, I was reading at his birthday party, and he was born on January 12th, which is when the three planets came together that foretold the plague, the pandemic, the COVID. And whenever those have shown up in that place, those three together, we've had a hard time with our human system. And he was born on that day. So not years ago, but that was his birthday. And we were talking, and I looked at him and I said, well, because I was in a table away from where anybody else could hear, and I said, why doesn't your wife know you've closed all your businesses? He was an investment sort of person. And he said, how do you know? And I said, it shows it. I said, you know something's coming. You feel it too. And he said, I do, and I can't figure it out. And he said, we're not going to war, are we? Because he had the same feeling I did. The world was just going to stop.
Yeah.
And what do you do? And so during that time when people were beginning to open up, and that's really when everybody got cracked wide open. And then if you could avoid it by going to movies, going out to eat with your friends, gossiping in the office, all the other things you had, COVID took care of that.
Yep.
No more hiding, you know. And that's when
it's slowing everything down
mm-hmm.
so that we could tune in, because it's hard to tune in when you're going in the rat race, you're going in rush hour, you're getting up late or early, you're drinking tons of coffee, you're getting on the freeway or whatever, you're working all day at a job you may not love and doing the whole thing on the way back.
Yeah.
It's hard to tune into the universe when you're in that.
Right.
But that COVID shut that off. Everybody
mm-hmm.
went home, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said. It's just sort of cracked it wide open. If you didn't know you were psychic before, had gifts, it started.
Yeah, you couldn't. That still small voice inside of all of us gets a whole lot louder when you're alone at home.
Yeah.
And that still small voice is coming out yelling because it's getting poked by the universe with all kinds of extra energy to help you. And we're actually, each of us, changing inside with the photonic energy that's been coming in since 2017. They're now tracking how it's changing our DNA. And it's not like we're not going to grow a tail, or our skin's not going to turn green, or unless you're a certain politician that we call three toes. Nothing weird's going to happen to your body, but it's a time and it's a real time of separation. And you said it, it's like, and it means separating from parts of yourself. It means not just having compassion and understanding for the great unwashed. You have to have compassion and understanding for the self unwashed, what you're not free of, and letting go of things is so hard. It's like, oh no, I might wear that outfit someday.
No. And when you're in motion and waves, you want to be lighter, right? So it's time to let go. It's time to let go of old ways of thinking or memories that bring you too much sadness or despair. It's letting go of all that stuff. It's letting go of junk in the house. It's becoming lighter and freer, and being okay with whatever is happening. So the last few months, I've told you, I've been feeling sort of weighed down by whatever energy is going on. And then I asked the creator last night, when can I have my energy back? Soon. Okay, great. But then I asked, why have I been feeling this way? And it's because there's a thing going on. There's some kind of energy exchange happening with the universe and me. Again, probably like a giant download or whatever the case may be. And that sometimes you have to be quiet and still for it to happen. And it can be, you may not like it, but it's for your greater good.
Yeah. Getting rid of things you've gotten fond of because they keep you connected in a different way. And we're disconnecting to get ourselves freer so that we can become I heard one, Pam Gregory was talking with someone, and she was talking about how we're going to be Homo luminous instead of Homo sapiens. We're going
I
to be light,
love that. Say it again.
homo luminous.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, and we're going to be lights. We're going to be creatures with a more understanding of our light. You can start to see the people around you that sparkle. And then the other part is you just have to let go of the people who don't want
Yeah.
to adjust. And there's nothing you can do about that. The best you can do is become the best you. And that's what lighting the candles is about. Each of us recommitting to send our intentions of to light and to becoming enlightened and to help and encourage others. And it means with our thoughts for ourselves, our thoughts for other people, and our thoughts for situations. So it means trust me, since I live in the state that has the stupidest politicians that are allowed to live there in Texas, and I read about the outrages of my state instead of getting really some of the things going on physically makes me sick. I sat down and instead I wrote a letter saying I'm a member of this state too, and what you're doing is appalling and inhumane. And if you say you're doing it in the state of Texas, it means you're doing it in my name. I want you to know you can take my name off your list of people to include in that, because that, and I try to have compassion, understand what drives these people. And I used to work with politicians, and I know what drives some of them. And some of them, the honest to God people, some of them think what they're doing is for the good. And you just have to understand, ask the universe to come rearrange their brain cells.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about, like you said, you still have to evolve. And you have to become enlightened and all that kind of stuff. And not everyone is on the same schedule. So if you have someone in your life that you love who's still kind of 3D, kind of down here, you have to just come to terms with it. They're on a different schedule. And even though you really want them to be enlightened, theirs is a different timeline than yours. And don't let yours be held back. So you can wish those people in your life or in your city or you see in the world, you wish them enlightenment, a speedy enlightenment, and know that they are on their timeline and we are on ours. And sometimes they don't line up. And those people you start to distance yourself from. You'll see it. You see people distancing themselves from other people, even in their family, jobs that don't feel right anymore, or even a city doesn't feel right, or a country. That's all part of you tapping in and riding that vibration, right? And moving forward.
Moving on the movement.
Right? And moving to where it feels right for you, because you need to be in a place, like in yourself, in your home, in your city, your country, whatever, where you're resonating with the vibration. It feels right to you. And that doesn't mean it's right for your husband or your mother or whoever, your friends. They're on their own vibrational timeline. And it's okay to not vibrate and stay in that orbit anymore with those who are over here, right? It's not easy, but for your own sake, right? You've got to go where it's right for you.
Right. 2 years ago when I did a Lionsgate show, and I was talking with another reader about it. What both of us had seen is all of people, just as sort of a sea of people was moving forward on a road, and then it hit a fork, and the fork, one went to the left, one went to the right. No judgment on whichever way you went, but you moved in the direction your energy was being pulled. But people kept running from one group back to the other, trying to get them, oh no, come along with me. And they didn't understand that wasn't how it was going to work. And then I did a show, you did a show with me and Danny about using pendulums and understanding your own body's frequency, because most of us were functioning between 5 to 800 it's something you can do when you dowse with a pendulum. I'll do a show on pendulums. I'll explain it all to you. And Andre can do it too. But anyway, the object is to get yours up to 1,000, and that people were feeling their energy change. But when they'd ask about someone that they saw take the other path, they'd see that their numbers were lower. Well, that's it's like you picked your chart, they picked theirs, and the frequency goes all the way back to now. Now those roads are so far apart, there's not any way to reach across them. You just have to move along on your road if you want to complete your soul's journey.
Yeah. Great point, because everyone thinks, most of us think or have been taught that this is just our only life. Your soul is eternal, and this human experience you're having this particular time is part of your soul's journey. There's a much bigger timeline up here. We're just in this one right now in our human form in this lifetime. So, and some people on their soul's journey, they might be in kindergarten and you might be graduating university. So of course you're not going to be on the same wavelength, because they're still learning so much that you already know. So we could wish we're all on the same vibration and knowledge, and someday we will be. We just need all those other people to catch up, right?
Well, you feel, I think, it's like you have to remember when you're arguing with someone that has a very stalwart opinion, even it's based on the facts as they perceive them. It's not alternative facts. It's how they perceive them. And you have a different perception, which means a different kind of knowing. Somebody said to me, how, when you're laying down cards and you're reading something, and well, I can give you a good example. I laid cards at a Halloween party for a bunch of young women that I do it for every year. Even in COVID, they did it in a big backyard with a table that was this far away. And this young woman sat down and I laid out her 10 card spread about what's going on around her in the next 3 months. And I looked at her and I said, why haven't you told anyone you died? You'd have thought I threw cold water in her face. I mean, she looked at me like you are. And I said, and she said, how did you know that? So then all of a sudden I knew what my instincts had said were correct. And I said, why haven't you told anyone? And it ends up, she'd been almost killed by a boyfriend. And he lied. When he took her to the hospital, he lied and he told them they'd been doing kinky sex. And he got worried, so he brought her in because she wasn't breathing right. So when she came out of the coma 3 days later, he had them all convinced that she was a sexy little kinky doll. And if you looked at this woman, she didn't look like that to me. But anyway, and she couldn't do anything. But now she lived in absolute fear of him because he knew she knew. And so she was living in just abject fear. And she had been, and besides knowing what she knew about him, she also, on the other side, had seen things that she was not ready for.
Yeah.
And they had told her, you have to come back because you have to save others. And so I said, what you saw on the other side is not something you made up to make yourself feel better. What you saw on the other side really happened to you. And so she said, have you never heard about NDEs? And this was like 3 years ago. She'd never heard about NDEs. And so I said, well, there are groups of people that meet that go through this so you can help each other understand what you've seen. So before she left my table that night, I'd found the names and numbers. I live in a big city. Names and number of 2 groups that met about that. And I said, you need to contact them. So long story short, she went and she contacted the group. And the first woman who was kind of her person that walked her through it and got her into it was a woman lawyer. And so finally she told the woman lawyer her whole story. And the woman lawyer said, we're going to go down and report him to the police. And she said, they won't listen to me. The whole hospital thought it was, I made a mistake and I was trying to blame him. She said, I don't think they're going to follow it that way. Well, when they went to homicide, they couldn't do anything with it. But one of the women homicide detectives said, go down to sex crimes and they'll help you. And so what they did is they said, if you'll take a lie detector test, then we'll go ahead with this. So they gave her the test and they decided she was real. They got all her records from her hospital, got her whole run up of it, got his name, and they said, he'll be here. He'll be on our radar again. And less than 6 months later, he killed his next girlfriend.
No.
And he told them the whole same story, and the hospital was eating it, but the but one of the nurses on the floor wasn't. So she called the cops, and the unit came up, and they recognized his name immediately. They went over the crimes that had happened to this young. Anyway, it couldn't have been from what he said it was. They had their own pathologist look it over, and he ended up in jail within 2 weeks of when that happened. And he was in jail, and he thought he was going to get out because they really couldn't prove it, blah, blah, blah. And then they came in and they said, no, the one that survived is going to testify against you. And we have all our medical records, and the bruises and the things on her body match completely with the young woman you finally killed. And they told him he could either take a plea, which would be life in prison, no possibility of parole, or he'd get, I live in a death penalty state, he'd get the death penalty. And I saw her the next Halloween, and he had just been put into Huntsville 2 weeks before. And I said, how do you feel about things? And she said, she said, do all you people all live like this? And I said, well, how are you doing? But she's actually goes out and speaks to NDE and explains it to people, so they don't.
Wow. I mean, that was such a profound story.
Mm-hmm.
And you cracked it open for her, because that was something she was living.
I was supposed to. I mean, her and people say, how do you know? Well, I knew enough to look a young woman I knew very little about and say, when did you die? I mean, the worst she was going to do is throw a cocktail on me and leave.
And there's a story about that also ties into this, about her not
taking her own power.
Yeah, and riding the wave of truth and light, instead of hiding or fighting it or pushing it down in a way. You kind of cracked it open for her to let her come through and live her truth.
And she found the people who could support her. That's the other thing you find out when you start living with truth. You find people around you who can help you with truth.
And you live in your truth, you're happy because it feels right. It feels right, All right, I'm feeling inspired.
Good. Get out there, girl. You can do it.
Get out there. We all
have.
Last night I was meditating, and I went right back into whatever the beginning, and we're all part of it. Like, we're just all part of the same thing, the same energy field. We're just here for a moment and then back up into it again, but we're all part, we come back again. We're all connected.
Well, if you're really lucky, you'll have the experience I had, and I never really understood. I used to think a lot of the people that were woo-woo around me were like happy clappy and what's wrong with you? And a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I was sitting in the chair I'm sitting in right now, and I was thinking about the little girl that used to see the things, and her mother, that my mother never completely dismissed it, but she said, don't tell the neighbors. Which is really, that's empowering. And then how I just got handed a tarot deck, and I could read the cards. I just understood them immediately. And it's like all these things in all my life, things just kept getting handed to me. Every job I ever got I was standing next to someone and they said, oh, our department needs someone like you. I mean, just really incredible good luck. And sometimes the good luck turned into, that was a lesson I learned. Ooh, I'm glad I'm out of there. But I always was afraid of being alone. And so I was thinking my way through all this, and all of a sudden I was sitting on the edge of the universe, and I could see all the galaxies out spinning, and how they're spinning together, and how they're sending this beautiful tone. That's what this big hum is. It's coming in from these two black holes that are spinning together. It's coming in, and I was sitting there and I realized, I felt it. I saw how I fit in all those big things. And those big things didn't scare me anymore. And how I realized we're never alone. And since that day, I have never felt alone, no matter how weird I might get in my own head. I remember, no, those were things where people were telling you to be separate, and nothing can separate me ever again. My energy's gotten just that tied in. The payoff from that is, though, being around people who are very cut off it's very difficult.
Mm. Yeah. And we can tend to sense it a lot sooner now. People who are very low vibration or haven't figured themselves out yet. It's like it's like their energy you can sense before you even talk to them.
Well, they get lower and lower. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like people kept saying for the 4 years we had the dumpster fire running our country, people kept saying, how much lower can it get? And I go, don't say that. No, that's a wrong thing to say, because he can take us down. But
Should
that's
be how much higher can it get? How
that's
much higher
right. And
can you bring it?
that's where the 9 candles came from. Once I started having a channel, I said, I want to teach people some of the small rituals I know to help enhance us. And that's what my whole channel is about. And that's what Andrea's channel is about a lot too, is the pendulum and the vibrations, and that you're going to Crawford Lake, right? Which I told her about, which is a
You just
place.
told me about Crawford Lake. I'm like, I gotta check this out if
It's a
I'm allowed
place in
to.
Canada that the world is going to use to measure all the changes that have happened to us since we started blowing up nuclear bombs, which it's a whole nother show. I'll do a show on that one too sometime. But we're we're all kind of exploring these new things, and they actually teach us how much stronger we are than we thought we were. And they don't. I wanted to be an astronomer when I was a little kid, until I kept looking up into space through this lovely telescope my father got me. And then I got really frightened. I
Mm.
didn't know what was up there. And it was because the more I looked up there, the more I felt like I was this tiny little thing on the planet Earth that wasn't worth anything.
Oh,
So I know, and the other thing that happened was I had the other thing that made me feel like a tiny little thing. Found out you had to do math to do astronomy. Um, Not my forte either. So, but I really can remember it. Now I don't mind going out and looking up at the stars and everything, because I feel like my energy is sucked up and it's a part of all that. And I also feel very grounded to the earth.
yeah. It's beautiful once you realize it and
Mm-hmm.
tap into it. And you know, we are in human bodies, and sometimes we do tap into the human 3D kind of thing. You might slip into it a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, but then you come back out, you tap into what's bigger, what's going on, and riding that wave, like getting us to where we need to be. And when you're in the zone, they know, they have the phrase, you know, when you're in the zone,
Mm-hmm.
when you're vibing, you feel it. It's a literal thing. You feel it. You feel really good. You're smiling. That energy's coming out of you. You can see it when someone else is in the right space. There,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't see auras, sometimes I see people's auras, but you can feel their energy, and it feels good. You want to be around it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So we need to be that for everybody else,
right.
right?
The other thing is when people say I'm in the flow, and if you've ever been
Yeah.
around, I had a friend who'd never done anything artistic or crafty, and this was 40 years ago. She was a friend of mine. We worked in public broadcasting together, and she got into macrame. And she'd raised 5 kids. I mean, some of her kids were still in grade school, but she said she would get in that room and start doing the macrame, and time just stopped, and there was a ton
Yes.
more macrame done, and all those concerns and everything went away. She was so totally focused on getting her macrame done, and she made beautiful pieces, and she'd never done anything like that in her life. And she said, that's what artists must feel like
Yes.
when they're producing. And I watercolor, and that's true. I'll sit down, I'm going to do a couple hours of this neurographic drawings that I do, and I'll have like 5 or 6 of them scattered around me, and I'm going, where'd all that come from? You know?
I've just started scrapbooking. I'm obsessed. I love it. And time
Mm-hmm.
stands still. There is no time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just me creating something, and just nothing else is happening in my mind. It's
Mm-hmm.
just pure. And that's tapping into the creator, right? The
Mm-hmm.
creators created everything. Can you imagine how beautiful and singular focus that is? Well, that's what we can do when we tap in, when if and that can be singing, you know, anything artistic, anything
Uh-huh.
creating, drawing, painting, whatever
Even
it is.
listening to music and making up your own dance,
Yeah,
moving your body.
yeah.
That's all the same thing. And that's what I hope. I guess our conversation is leading me to believe that that's what our intentions are for people, is to learn to grow and to use all the sources of energy around them to free themselves from
Yes.
feeling trapped, because that old Eight of Swords is always in that tarot deck, no matter what you do.
But you harness that energy,
And then you can go with the flow.
you go with the flow with strength and power and happiness, and there you have it.
That's right. So 8-8 Lionsgate there's going to be a lot of revelations. Oh, my two favorite stories about 8-8 Lionsgate. So if you've listened to Days Before Now, you're going to go, she's going to say that again. 8-8 Lionsgate last year was when they didn't raid, when they went and served the search warrant on Mar-a-Lago. And 8-8 Lionsgate in 1972 is the day that Nixon left the White House.
Oh,
so you want to say that certain 8-8 Lionsgate doesn't have a significance? It does. And a lot of people have gone back and looked at their life and saw things. One woman wrote, "Oh God, you're right about that. I got married on 8-8, didn't last very long." Doesn't say you're making the right choice, but making a choice is the important part.
And all that's for a lesson. If you're married and it doesn't work out, there was a lesson there for you to learn. Part of your soul's journey.
Yes, there are no mistakes. If you never make a mistake, you're never moving. Because we can even trip over our own feet trying to walk. So, and I'm sure we've said enough moral platitudes to make these people just want to
figure out who you are. Figure out what makes you happy, what makes you vibe.
Start with what makes you vibe. And if you do that, then you'll know who you are.
You'll figure out who you are, right? And then that you'll move forward and know the universe is with you and behind you, and that you don't have all the answers yet, but you're on the path to figuring it out.
We're working on it.
Ride the wave. That's
right. Ride the wave. We've got a bunch of them. We've got photonic energy. We've got this big giant hum. That's at 9. I think I heard last night. I heard it. Someone has actually recorded it off one of the radio telescopes. And if I was I majored in broadcast film, and I know how to edit videos. I don't, because I know how to edit videos, so I don't. But you can go find it. You can Google it, the big wave and the big hum, and you can hear it. And it's almost like a really deep om. It's really freaky. And then there's a lot of other energies that are changing, coming towards us. The sun's going nuts. The sun, which for some years, if it had 20 big flares, that was a big year. We've had over 240 this year. So
that feels about right.
Feels about the Canadian wildfires, yes.
Yeah.
Come whipping us up. But we will, as a collective, find our way out of this if we can get our collective energy together.
Yep.
Mother God, because the other energy that's changing is the ley lines and the dragon lines on the earth, and they're getting wider, they're getting straighter, they're getting tighter, because Gaia is going to eventually respond to all the pressure that's been put on her. And remember, Gaia is a lot bigger than we are, and she could flick us off like fleas. So we all ought to be working with Gaia. We're with your intentions of good things.
Yeah, tapping into the earth energy. So that's, standing outside on earth, like on dirt or in the ocean or lake, wherever you are, in your bare feet, or touching a tree, wherever it is you can get to, like nature, and just sort of be quiet and touch it with your hands or your feet or whatever it is, and feeling that energy.
Yes. I'm a big believer in that, because when the fairies and the gnomes come out of the earth and say, "We're here, we're back, we're going to help you unscrew up the world you screwed up," you need to be out there and be with them. And you'll be happier. I mean, they're actually sort of delightful creatures. So anyway, the other thing we have to do is blow out the candles, girl. So bring this to a sudden and abrupt halt. See? Okay. And the reason I blow the candles out every day is because the first time I did this, people didn't know they were supposed to. And at the end of day 3, they only had like 7 candles left. So well, and the whole time smoke is blowing up. When you blow a candle out, you know, there's that smoke that comes up from the wick that you can see there. And this is Andrea's candle. That's our thoughts and intentions continuing to flow upward.
Beautiful.
So have a great summer in Canada. Don't wait so long to come back by the channel to say hi.
Hi. And who knows, maybe I'll fly down to Texas someday.
Yeah, some people are trying to get me to work on doing something here, and I don't know. We got to wait till it's not 110.
Yeah, I'm not coming there in the summer. Sorry.
Especially because my car has no AC. You're really
Oh, no.
Anyway, everybody, you have a good day and stay cool or stay warm, depending on which part of the globe you're on.
Thank
And
you for having me, Nancy Jean.
thank you for coming by and giving us your perspective on this time of change. And thank you all for joining us one more day. We'll be on again tomorrow night at 7 with our premiere. Have a good day.